Sunday. I think it's Sunday. Pouring down rain. Spent the whole day putting up posts and beams for the last half of my barn in the pouring rain underneath a huge shed, metal roof. It's dumping on top of me at the same time with the rain. Whatever. It's only water, right? It's only water. So I don't know what's going on lately, but there's been whatever's happened lately in the planet is knee-jerked or whatever we shared, I don't know. But it's funny, every once in a while, all of a sudden it'll just be a knee-jerk reaction or whatever it is, and a whole pile of people will feel compelled to email in their experiences on the same day. Maybe it's just because it's Sunday today, I don't know, but I woke up this morning, checked the emails, and there's just the email had just exploded. The inbox had exploded today or overnight, whenever it was. So I'm gonna get a handful of brand new emails in shared right now. So I held it, it's easy. And I think some of these titles may be fairly important to find out as soon as I read them. I haven't read anything. What was I gonna say? I think that's all I got to say right now. There's a lot of information being passed back and forth between a handful of people. There's a lot of information coming this way to me to be passed on to all of you, all right? And I'm looking forward to that. There's a lot of puzzle pieces that are starting to fall in place that I didn't even know existed for my puzzle. And I hope everybody else's puzzle is starting to close in. And I have a feeling there's going to be some significant puzzle pieces dropped here in the next month. I'm quite confident. Not that we haven't had any dropping in anyway, right? It's something else, isn't it? How many? How many people? Now, what do we got? Where was that one? I saw one title here that I wanted to start off with. Okay, here's one. Listen to this. This title's something a little odd. Alarming, possibly. Haven't read any of it, as usual. But this is titled, "It Tried to Kidnap My Wife." Steve, thank you for what you have done and continue to do. Love your no BS attitude and approach to not just the Bigfoot/Sasquatch topic, but government and life in general. As a side note, isn't it amazing how messed up stuff gets when the government gets involved? Government is the most inefficient process for things and the biggest waste of money ever invented. And time. I know we are of like mind here. Yeah, no doubt, man. I try to bite my lip most times on that topic, but from what I've learned this past year after putting in a solid effort of time and energy to learn and watch and observe, figure out what the hell is going on. For all of the people out there that say, oh, we don't want to hear about politics or we don't want to talk about government, that absolutely amazes me now because, what is it, over 60% of your money goes into their pockets. If that isn't enough to make you want to know what the hell's going on, I don't know what more can motivate you. But to know of the darkness that is going down, dumped on all of us from Western governments is over frickin' whelming currently. And it's amazing to me how many people refuse to acknowledge it or even bat an eye at it. It's amazing to me. Anyway, let me stop right there. Sorry. Sorry. My phone, of course, logs out. Here we go. Anyway, I don't know how to keep this short. Where to start? I was born south of the border from you in what is called SeaTac, Washington. Been there, not too far away. My dad's family had 20 acres on the Olympic Peninsula outside of the town of Silverdale, out Clear Creek Road. This is not far from Bremerton. When he was growing up, it was the boonies, and he was a woodsman / country boy at heart who ended up living a civilized life, retired from the Boeing Engineering Union after 40 years. I grew up hunting, fishing, rock hounding, camping, and cutting firewood, which was our source of heat. My hunting days started in western Washington, and you know what that is like. Thick brush, not much visibility, and rain, blacktails. Yeah, no doubt. Actually dumped a new trail camera video on the howtohunt.com page full of blacktails for whoever's curious. I can't even count the times I felt like I was being watched, scared, and even disoriented or lost. And I was never far from my brothers, one older, one younger. I'm about 20 months older and younger than them. Eventually, I began hunting eastern Washington. I decided I loved the sagebrush country where I could see what was around me. Yeah, isn't that funny? Isn't that funny growing up a black-tailed deer hunter in the jungle? And then when you go after mule deer, it is so freaking easy, right? In the fall of '95, my younger brother and I headed to the southeast corner of the state for opening weekend of deer season. We had never been down there before, but a guy my brother knew suggested that we drive out into the Chief Joseph area. Maybe wildlife area? Can't remember. I towed my 16-foot trailer and we drove through Asotin, A-S-O-T-I-N, Asotin, and out a gravel road. We didn't really know what we were looking for, so after many miles, we pulled over in a wide spot and road and called it good. We could see the tops of the trees to the east where the breaks in the Snake River began, so Idaho was not far away. And we guessed the Oregon line was 2 to 5 miles south. After some chow, we prepared all our gear for a good hike the next morning. Guns, ammo, drinks, and some snacks. And after dark, we called it a night. The trailer had 2 bunks, one at each end. Mine was closest to the front and nearest the door. From the time we parked there on Friday afternoon until we went to bed, no other vehicles came past us, no other camps were visible. This is before either of us had a cell phone. Sometime in the middle of the night, something had a hold of the doorknob and began shaking the door, which was not locked. The door was rattling loudly, and the trailer was slightly swaying side to side. I heard my brother say, "Dale, is that you?" To which I responded, "No, I thought it was you," thinking that he had slipped out to take a leak. At my response, I heard him chamber around in his .30-06, and I did likewise with my .308. At that point, it let go of the doorknob in silence. I mean total silence. No footsteps on the gravel, nothing. No vehicles driving, nothing. Steve, what person in their right mind would try to breach a trailer in the middle of the night, a day before deer season out in the hills? And any human would know how to turn the knob. We both went back to sleep and didn't leave the trailer till the sky was gray and it was light enough to see. This was partly because we didn't know where we were and wanted to be able to see. There's nothing in sight and no tracks, go figure. I know what happened, so did my brother. Dad always said these beings were not a hoax, that the history goes back way too far into the native tribes. In '92, my older brother and I went gold mining for a week in Northern California. It was the end of May / beginning of June. My dad's older brother had 2 sons, my cousins Drew and Scott. They grew up in the foothills of the Sierras outside the town of Oroville, California. They were both outdoorsmen also and a decade older than me. This part of the narrative becomes important because my cousin Drew got me into gold mining in the summer of '85, but I'll come back to that in a bit. I'll tell you what, if you ever want to get into gold mining, I'd say right now is about time, isn't it? With those prices. My cousin Drew and a friend of his had a claim up Canyon Creek out of Junction City. Canyon Creek flows into the Trinity River about 9 miles downstream of Weaverville. The Trinity River continues down through the famous town of Willow Creek and onto the Klamath River. This region is where the Patterson/Gimlin, don't think that is spelled right, film of Patty was taken, and the general area of Bluff Creek as well. The water was really cold. The snow was still on the ground, and we weren't finding a lot of gold. Cold and discouraged, we decided to take a road trip to Oroville, a 3 or 4 hour drive, and try to hike up a certain creek that I won't mention. It was a place my uncle found, and it was supposed to be very rich. When I was 14, my dad got a call from my uncle. He said he had struck a spot and wanted my dad to take the summer off work and to bring us boys down and go mining. He said it was rich enough to change all our lives. My dad began making plans, but my uncle came down with pneumonia and died very suddenly. Oh, that sucks. He never told my dad where the place was, so it was lost. In July 1990, while gold mining with my cousin Drew, I told him this story and he said he knew where the place was. I was shocked and asked him why we never went there. He said the country's very rugged, but if we had a boat, it was accessible by the lake. 1 month later, my dad and I took his boat down there, and both my cousins, Dad and I, went up there. It was beautiful, but super rugged. We found some gold, but nothing like my uncle had described. Now, a couple of years after the boat trip, my brother and I figured we could hike up to the spot. So we made the drive and began the hike up the lake shore. It was afternoon when we started hiking. We went on and on. The country got more and more vertical. At one point, on a nearly sheer rock face, we saw a strange-looking goat. We'd never seen anything like it. We called it the double goat. I now know it was an aoudad. An aoudad? No shit, in Washington, or was that in Washington? Sorry. I'll keep going, sorry. Not spelled right, but fairly common in Texas. Yes, they are. Didn't know they had them in California. I bet the suckers just moved right on up there, one on tour. As we began to approach the creek we were headed to, I began to feel dread. Not just fear, but outright panic. Like everything in my life was wrong. Like my wife and kids at home were dead. Like I was going to die. We crested a ridge and looked down at the creek. The sun was going down over the hill. It was a long hike. My brother says we should just stay the night with as late as it is. I was crawling out of my skin, but nothing was bothering him. Strange. I told him I couldn't stay there a second longer, so we headed back the way we came. That's interesting, isn't it? That only one person felt that and one didn't. Kind of like last fall. So last fall, the fall before, I had that buddy of mine with me, and my trail camera got slid all the way around the trunk of that big tree to face the next tree beside it, 2 feet away. And when I went to go get the quad, my partner heard something absolutely beating the shit out of a tree. He said it sounded like it was being wailed on with a baseball bat right where I was, and I didn't hear nothing. Didn't hear nothing. Then again, I do ask them not to scare me all the time before I go in the woods, so maybe they were giving me respect and not him so much. I don't know. Sorry. I was crawling out of my skin, but nothing was bothering him. Strange. I told him I couldn't stay there a second longer. So we headed back the way we came. I was going so fast as I could move in that terrain. We made it to the car as it got pitch black and the terror was gone. Now, in my last experience, I'm especially interested in accounts where Bigfoot / Sasquatch Sabe is after girls / women. In the account from the military pilot out of Afghanistan, where they had the creature in the field at night and hit it with the IR and it took off up the mountain. When they talked to the Afghan man about it, he said they should have killed it. It takes their women. I've heard the stories from the tribes telling their girls not to go into the woods alone and never at night. And they still do. Still to this day, certain Native communities here in British Columbia, I know for a fact, lock up the women and the kids when they know Sasquatches around the community. They just do. There's a story out of BC of a 16-year-old girl disappearing while picking berries with some girlfriends. A year later, she showed up back at the village. She was very sick and very pregnant. She gave birth the next day. The baby didn't survive, probably due to her bad health. But she told how the hairy man had kidnapped her, carried her to a cave of the mountain where his mom and dad lived. She was repeatedly raped, became pregnant and sick. He returned her to her village a year later. She recovered and told the story. And this happened in the 1880s. And when she was 70 years old, told the same story to some Frenchmen that came to her village. That was reported in the 30s. I heard that story too. Steve, read this yourself. First, you read an account from a woman that said her mother was abducted as a young woman in Ohio, I think. The men ran and got their guns and caught up to the creature and killed it and brought the girl home. You asked how on earth did those guys catch up to it? I have an idea. I think it stopped to rape her, and that is why the men caught up and killed it. Just my thought. You never know. Maybe. There's no secrets on this channel, man. I share everything as we go. Obviously, if I just read that on here, I've got a chance to cut it out editing after this part, okay, you guys? In the summer of 86 or 87, maybe 88, my wife, her 2 children, her nephew, and 2 nieces, all under 10 years old, drove to Northern California to go gold mining on the Trinity River. Same river mentioned before, with my cousin Drew, his wife, and their 2 kids, 10 and 8. We were about 3 to 5 down the river from a dot on the map called Deloma. Population like 8 people, 3 dogs, 4 horses. Just a little store/post office back then. Drew had his 8-inch suction dredge in the river right off the highway 299. There was a big turnout in the road, and that is where we parked. There was a switchback trail that went down the steep embankment to the river bar. At the bottom of the trail was a sandbar. This is where we put a big tarp and spread out the sleeping bags. My wife and I on one end, all the kids, then Drew and his wife. Yes, we slept under the stars and it was awesome. My wife and I were in a double sleeping bag. She was on my left and I was on my back. Sometime in the pitch black at night, my wife screamed, "Dale!" and hit me across the face with her right hand. Her hips were out of the sleeping bag to my shoulders. She was halfway out of the bag. According to her, she was very soundly asleep on her back and she was having a bad dream. She knew something was wrong but couldn't seem to come through to consciousness and wake up. Something had a hold of her left wrist and was slowly pulling out of her sleeping bag. When she came through, she screamed my name and her right hand, which was beside my head, smacked me in the face. Whatever had a hold of her wrist, let go, and went straight up the hill. This commotion woke Drew and his wife, and he said, "What's going on?" I said, "Something had a hold of Melanie." And I heard his revolver cock. The embankment was steep enough that we had a switchback trail to go up and down in the daylight. This went straight up it, about halfway, then side hill down the river, and it was moving. None of us saw anything as it was very dark, but you could hear the sticks breaking and rocks rolling down the hill as it went. And that was the last time my wife slept under the stars to this day. No doubt. We joke about it to this day as the night Bigfoot nearly kidnapped her. Thank God you can joke about it. Could you imagine if it went the other way? Good God, you know how many people have lost family members and they never got them back. You know, I'll admit it, when I'm out in the woods and I've got somebody's kids with me, or we got kids or women with us, I got an eye on them at all times, and I always have something to defend ourselves with somewhere, no matter what. Even if it's a day trip to go, I don't give a shit. There would be nothing. I've unfortunately daydreamt of that worst nightmare ever more than a few times. And I don't know how many times I've actually visualized how frustrating and how helpless you would feel with a child or your partner being taken, and off they go up into those big timbered mountains that go forever. And I try to picture what I would do and how frustrating that would be, because there's basically nothing you can do. Nothing. As in absolutely effing nothing. So I do not wish that upon anyone, and I guess what I'm saying is you're lucky you got a joke about that, because I don't ever want to experience that, and I hope it doesn't happen to anybody else. But unfortunately, this shit does happen, and I just could not imagine what that would be like. Right? You're not gonna catch up to them. Sorry, got a little go off track there. My phone just closed up. Here we go. Interestingly, we shared this story with some friends. They were skeptical, but know us well enough to know we don't make stuff up. Shortly after they moved to the Fort Bragg area of Northern California to caretake some property way up a valley there, they told our story to a couple that lived close to them. They were shocked and shared this story back. They're camping by a lake in California. It was a warm summer night, big full moon, with a nearly sheer cliff outside the door of their tent. Due to the heat, they left the door for their tent unzipped in the middle of the night. The hairy man tried to slide her out of the tent. She woke up about halfway out the tent and screamed. In the moonlight, they watched it scale the cliff. Dirty frickin' bastard. I've been following your channel for a couple of years and I've never heard a share quite like our experience. I know there are many abilities these things possess that we don't. I believe they are multi-dimensional. What I'd like to know is, where do they come from and what are they? Why are we not told about them? It can't be to protect land, as our government agencies are trying to keep us out of the woods. And why do they want our women? What's wrong with their females? Why do they respond to the name of Jesus? Yes, I'm a Christian believer and have never smoked, never tried drugs of any sort, and yes, never drank, never tasted a beer. It might make me weird, but doesn't make me better than anyone else, just choices I made along the way. Hey dude, whatever floats your boat, man. We are all equal here no matter what. Nobody judges anybody here. Good for you, by the way. My wife and I moved to the Northwest in '99, moved to Maui, so no recent encounters, but we're planning to move back in the near future. Steve, I'm a year older than you, and don't care what anyone else thinks about this. I was there. If you share this, please feel free to use my name, Dale Ward. I don't give a rat's fury behind what someone else thinks. Good for you, man. You're free. You're living free. Sorry this is so long. I tried to proof it, and since I'm a hunt and peck typer, it's taken all day. Keep up the great work. Maybe a fishing or hunting trip could be in our futures. Thanks. Dale, thank you, man. It's experiences like that need to be shared here. That's very, very important. And what can I touch base on that? I know for a fact, amongst other friends, contacts of mine, there's numerous stories out there that people just don't want to share because it makes them too uncomfortable. It just sounds a little too creepy, but it still happened. And I'll give you one of them. I don't have the full details, but there has been more than one or a few occasions where a young couple's been out in the wilds in the middle of the summer, whatever, went parked, and they're doing what comes naturally, and they have had these things. I remember one was either chasing them with an erection or watching them, and the sexual aroused part was mentioned and alarming, obviously, right? But that has happened, but people just they don't want to say that shit, right? I'll say it. I don't give a shit. I do not give a shit about what anybody thinks, and I have zero respect for offended culture. Sorry, I've made that clear numerous times. If you have it in you to be offended by anything, just hit the unsubscribe button. Nobody gives a shit about you're offended. Forget it. Let me bite my tongue. If it happened, it happened. Share it here, we'll read it. All right? It needs to be shared, no matter how much it may sound too alarming or too creepy or might offend somebody. There's no room here for people to get offended. Thanks again for sending it in, and I am so happy that your experience didn't end in an absolute lifetime of frustration and sadness, and PTSD. And that was a new email in, so is this one. What's this title? This is titled, My Mother Said No One Will Believe You. Well, not until you got a hold of this channel. I had to drive as fast as I could to keep my Mazda 323 hatchback from sinking into the soft, sandy twin trail. I carried a come-along and wire cutters with me after previous failed attempts. This allowed me the confidence to learn the car, a manual front-wheel drive, and the road without fear of further tow truck charges. Also, don't forget the mechanic, quality, jumped cables, and big lighters. Up north, it's blankets and an extension cord. All right, it's a different opening. This is in Burlow Garden State Park, off of a small 2-lane highway. It's just north of Tomoka State Park. Anyway, there is this river access road, twin trail, that you just have to learn the mile marker and the trees. You just veer off of the road and go between the correct 2 trees, and you can't stop. You stop, you'll be stuck in one of the many sand traps. Oops. So I'm hauling freaking ass, windows down, jamming out to local radio. 2 hands on the wheel, downshifting at each turn, and rapidly accelerating between turns. Their oak tree roots, cypress roots, you know how they are, palm fronds, and brush catching up the sides of my light blue car. I was learning every patch of deer moss, every tree and patch of sand, and more importantly, how fast I can take each turn. Ever ready to stop immediately for other cars, bicycles, pedestrian traffic, especially deer. I was prepared for what was about to happen. By the grace of God, I was prepared for what was about to happen. By the grace of God, I was prepared for what was about to happen next. I'd never been in an accident, other than drifting over barbed wire fences and having to cut my car out. Not so much as a dead squirrel to my name, although I've later in life racked up a tally of unfortunate roadkill. I remember making a long, slow right turn up onto higher ground, roots and actual soil. They call this oak, pine, cypress, and palm tree swamp a pine scrub forest. Truth be told, there are like 3 different ecosystems overlaying the area. Mixed deciduous forest, cypress swamp, and pine scrub forest. Don't hold me to it. As I whipped my car through the sandy turn as fast as I could, my eyes were scanning, mostly for an oncoming car, but what I saw next had me throw into a stall out as I used second gear as emergency brake. I quickly turned off the ignition, which silenced the blasting radio. I crawled out my window with amazement and sat in awe on my driver's side door. As I held the Yakima roof racks, I felt no fear, not a drop. The salt life had prevailed. It was like any other cat in my experience. It just ignored me. It traveled right to left across my next straightaway, right where I was going to be going the fastest, or I was sure to be stuck in sand. Thankfully, I put enough tire rubber on some tree roots to later continue driving. That had started to slow down. Time had started to slow down, obviously. This black monster was jet black, like John Travolta's hair in grease. She could have taken 2 leaps and ripped me into pieces before I could have rolled up my windows. That I know for sure. She took up the entire road. Absolutely beautiful, Steve. A marvelous specimen of the Black Panther. That is why I had to see her without a bug-covered windshield, distracting the view of one of the most elusive creatures in North America. I'm pretty sure that my heartbeat stopped so I could hear her move or her breath. She was just a head and a leg coming out of the forest. From right to left, I watched her next step from outside. From right to left, I watched her next step from outside my driver's side window. I must have held my breath again for 90 seconds. She was massive, golden eyes. I got just a glance of eye contact, like a rock star to a fan. I had this overwhelming sense of fearlessness. I was so calm. I really could believe it was happening. I believed in these animals. I knew they were where nobody really goes. I figured I'd never see a black panther. I've never seen a panther. I've seen bobcats in Florida before. So I figured this is it. Straight into thick brush. This is my only chance to watch this animal. Just 10 yards away, I watched its head, left the road and entered the forest on the left, but its body was still taking up the entire twin trail. I was literally drooling as I knew I was going to see her tail next. This would perhaps be another point of communication with this rare beast. Maybe she would communicate with me using her tail. I was telling it silently that it was safe and I was privileged to see her, all the while I was getting a better and better view. My astonishment, she kept her tail pointed straight back, curling only to play with the tail of the Black Panther cub trailing right behind her mother, and then another and another, until I watched a total of 7 Black Panthers walk right before my very eyes. Excuse me, she had 6 cubs. Yeah, her tail was also as long as the road, and like a cub and a half long. I remember counting and recounting in my head, reliving the experience, trying to convince myself that it was just 5 cubs. So I still stand by 6 cubs and a mother. I never once thought I would needed to be worried about a father panther. I rolled out of my car just like a Duke boy and listened to them disappear into the thick Florida mixed deciduous forest. I slowly walked up their tracks and kneeled down on both knees just in absolute awe. These cubs nearly placed each step within each other's. You would never believe that there were 6 cubs. I wiped it all away with my hands and feet and left no trace. Their paws were in soft sand, probably 5 or 6 inches wide, and 2-inch wide finger pads. The cubs placed their little paws in the middle of their tracks, straight as an arrow. They're little ninjas. I drove to the intercoastal waterway, and as I reflected upon the Halifax River, I thought how fortunate I was. Not only did I see a black panther, but I saw 7 of them at once. A very good sign for the health of the species. They truly are as majestic as the wilderness I have so far experienced. All right, man, that's not a common one. Worthy of the share, I think. On that note, I had a bunch of friends up here in British Columbia who hunt cats, big cats with hounds. And I'll tell you what, friends of mine that are houndsmen, I've never done it, believe it or not. I've never gone with hounds after big cats ever before in my life. I don't know why. I guess I probably should. But the people that do it are very, very passionate about it. They love their dogs, and they love taking the dogs out and running cats. So I do know a friend of mine in Alabama has seen one of those big cats. In Tennessee, I think he saw it, and he swears up and down he saw it, and I believe him. I don't know why so many people don't believe people when they say I saw a black panther. Excuse me, but I'm curious to know how come we haven't had anybody, there's got to be some houndsmen down there, isn't there? I mean, I know there's some guys with dogs that hunt hogs. I've been with them in the southern U.S. But maybe there isn't too many guys that have cougar hounds down south. I bet there probably isn't. But it would be interesting, very interesting, to get some guys, some very experienced guys with good hounds, and go down south and tree a couple of black panthers and film them. That would be something else. And I do know of some guys that might be into it. I'd be into that. Just to film it. Just to see it and film it. Pretty cool. One time, and I've had that rarity sighting of wildlife too. Remember, that reminds me, one time I saw a black bear whip north as a sow, and she had 4 cubs with her. And I got out of the truck and I got a little bit too close to get a video of her, and she literally busted free of those cubs that came at me doing Mach 5 and chased me right back. I got around the truck and I dove in the passenger door to get away from her before she made it around. Wasn't happy about that. Anyway, thanks for that share, man. What else we got? All right, this is titled, "Oh My God, Sasquatch." Many people heard those words before. Hi Steve and the HTH family. I'm Lori. I've been 52 years on this God-given green earth, and I've never thought I'd have a sighting of an effing Bigfoot. I live in Virginia, a rural area, BFE, Bump F, Egypt. I guess 30 miles from the Appalachian Trail and the Blue Ridge Mountains. I've had 3 encounters. This made me scared of the dark, and scared of noises in the dark, and scared of what's in the dark. No doubt. About 10 months ago, I had to go and let my sister's dog out before she got home. She, my sister, had just bought a 52-acre farm with a cute little farmhouse. She put 2 beautiful horses in the pasture and really loved it. If only the nuclear power plant wasn't around. No doubt. Yep. And a big lake that is warm all year from the process of cooling the reactor. Not sure if it connects for anyone, but though it was worth mentioning. Yeah, it's very worth mentioning to me and many others listening right now. Like I said before, I had to run over to rescue poor Cooper from expected disaster of explosive proportions. Well, I decided to call my friend SG. I didn't ask her, so I'll keep names out. So I loaded Messenger and pushed a video call and welcomed her to the chat as I was pulling up. You'd fall in love instantly with this quaint little place. Just a place to tuck away the outside world and recall memories from living on a dairy farm with all our animals when we were younger. I had my pup Louie with me. He's 3/4 Chihuahua, 1/4 Pomeranian, 12 feet tall and bulletproof. Aren't they all? So we hopped out of the Jeep laughing and joking with SG. I headed over to see the 2 new horses she just rescued. I put Louie on a leash to keep him away from the horse and out of harm's way. I had my phone up talking and showing her SG the place when I noticed this large black thing. about 200 feet behind me. I looked and asked SG if she sees it, pointing at it with the leash in hand, and she did. What the F is that? She asked. I don't know, was all I could say. I felt the presence of this being behind me and pure terror. The feeling of how minuscule, minute, and just fear was overwhelming me. I screamed at it, "Go away!" And still screaming, "This is a home for our family with pets and loved ones here. Nothing to see here," as I ran into the house with Louis behind me. Steve, the size was unbelievable, and the stealth of its run was amazing. Here now and gone. SG said it ran off to the left. I really didn't care where that huge thing went as long as it was away from me. It was at least 8 feet tall, black hair and tan face. I think it was, like y'all say, teenager. Yeah, because it was lanky, but big and tall. I was talking to SG, asking what she saw and where it went. She said the phone camera was making the shape of the Sasquatch fuzzy, like in the background, so no features could be seen on her end. I was terrified, crying, and mystified about its height and girth. He was big and could have killed me right then and there, and the little dog too. I didn't feel safe in the house. Shit, I couldn't stop it from completely destroying the house or anything it wanted to. Checking outside after being in the house about 45 minutes, I decided to let poor Coop out on the leash right at the back door to take care of business. I was saying bye to SG and decided to call my sister Sherry on video feed to tell her what just happened. As I did this, I noticed in the distance a large, what I thought, guy, older with gray or white hair and a white shirt. This wasn't unusual to have different contractors around building things, or walking up the dirt road beside the barn, which is right in front of where the Sasquatch thing was. I asked my sister what I should do. Oh my God, she was like, warn him, yell to him to be aware and stuff. She then suggested I drive to him. I was still shaken up, my knees knocked, and I couldn't stop shaking. I wasn't doing good with the balls at the moment because I had none. I looked over the top of the Jeep towards where all that stuff was and noticed that the gray-haired dude wasn't walking anywhere but standing 20 feet west of where the other thing was. Only he was bigger. It was another one, but grayish-white and so wide and big. Instantly tears flowed, and as clumsy, not gracefully, loud, I could to open the Jeep and locked us inside. Louis never barking, or Cooper either. Steve Chihuahuas bark at everything. My sister telling me to drive by it or to it for her to see better. Me, I backed up, slid as I did, and busted down the gravel drive so fast Richard Petty would have been proud. I wanted away. I was at the shopping center 10 miles away and I can't remember driving there or how long I'd been there. I was parked in the parking lot at the end of a row farthest from the stores, Jeep running. Steve, I don't know where that time went and I haven't figured out how long it was, but I do know a few hours had gone by because it was getting dark. Louis fell asleep on the seat next to me. I noticed I'd called a few friends and couldn't recall the conversations, and I still can't. I don't know how to describe how weak, small, frail, helpless I feel. They could wipe us out quick, and there isn't anything you could do unless you have a weapon. I find the 12 gauge rather appealing. It's unknown to me. I'm having a hard time wrapping my brain around it. I'm still kicking, and it didn't kill me, which I'm thankful for every day. Then there is my Germanian heritage. I swear it's creepy when you dig deeper. I know these beings existed, but I sure didn't need to see 2 more. I'm done with it, and I want to be left alone. That being said, last night I got home after dark. I am handicapped and disability. I have pain a lot of my neck, back, and arms, so I feel like crud and can be grumpy. I got out of the Jeep and immediately knew something was to my left watching me, close. I don't feel good today, and I'm not feeling with you. Not feeling, I thought you might have meant not dealing with. I'm gonna put dealing in there instead of feeling. So, I don't feel good today, and I'm not dealing with your shit too. So I stomped at that direction, and it took off running away. Kind of out of frustration, you know? I could feel the ground shake with every footstep from the mass of something extremely large running away. I quickly got inside, closing any gaps in the curtains and locking all the doors and windows. It's ruined my feeling of being safe and destroyed my ability to enjoy nature without checking to make sure they're not around. I am so scared. Hope you stay safe and healthy. Sorry for any spelling and grammar mistakes. Grateful every day, Lori. Yes, Sarah's very lucky. All right, Lori, thanks for those kind words. I wish we were closer. I sincerely wish we were closer so we could come over there and offer up some kind of help or comfort, right? You could possibly want to get a hold of Scott Carpenter. He's had a lot of success in dealing with these beings and private residences. But make sure you stay safe, and always go with your gut feelings. All right, go with your intuition, your sixth sense. We all got it. Stay in tune with it. And if something doesn't feel right, it's not. All right, and it's not just you playing games with yourself in your head. If something feels out of sorts, it's out of sorts. Always. And then try to do the typical, put some floodlights on the outside of the house. Make sure you always got a dog. This is the part that sucks for me when you talk to people, good, kind, souled human beings, innocent, who aren't looking for this shit, and it just gets thrown in their lap and slapped in their face, and there's nothing you can do about it. And that's not fair, and that sucks. And that is where it makes me very angry that the dirty, filthy pricks who know refuse to let the general population know. It's not fair, right? But anyway, that's why we're here. So, Lori, keep listening. Stay in contact with as many people as you can on this topic, and be safe. And go with your intuition, all right? Shotgun with slugs and buckshot is what we suggest is the #1 stopper of grizzly bears. So there's something about a shotgun with the plug taken out of it, loaded up with a buckshot and slug, that makes a household feel a little more warm and cozy. Let's get another one. These are all current emails in, and I'm glad I hit them tonight, because there's some people here that need to be heard right away. Oops. All right, what else we got here? I think that's what we're after. My Event is the title of this one. I haven't a clue what it's about. You can find out. Steve, I'm not sure if you read this on your channel, as it contradicts many other shares, but it happened nonetheless. It's 1982, and I just ended my time in the Army. After getting home, I found nothing had changed. That and my experiences in the service left me in poor mental state. I'm sorry to hear that. I love the outdoors and camping from an early age, so I foolishly decided that camping in the Florida glades would give me the peace of mind I desperately needed. After 3 days, I had enough, packed up my gear, and headed out, only to realize that I had somehow gotten myself lost. There's about 7 hours of daylight left, so I climbed the tallest tree I saw to get my bearings. The tree was pretty thin, and just as I saw the way I needed to go, I slipped down and fell about 16 feet. That sucks. My knee and ankle were sprained very badly, and the pain was nearly unbearable. I limped as far as possible in the direction I needed to go, but soon couldn't stand the pain anymore. Finding the path leading out, I sat and started scooting backwards as best I could. It was hard going, as the path was made of crushed shells and gravel. An hour in, I saw a large cat come out of the bush. It slowly started towards me, much like a house cat does when it sees a bird. Feeling very vulnerable and unarmed, I knew I was in deep shit. Each time I scooted backwards, it would lunge and sort of flop its front paws. Craziest thing I ever saw. It was about 10 yards from me when from my right came a rock about the size of a softball, flying horizontally like a missile. It struck the side of the cat's head so hard that aside from literally exploding, it folded around backwards and slapped its body. I heard the crunch and saw the blood mist on impact. Holy shit. Steve, I swear every single word is absolute truth. I got your back, man. It's all right. I looked to the right and I saw him standing there just inside the tree line. Massive, dark hair covered except his face. It was dark, but easily human-like. We made eye contact, and I felt very calm. To this day, I can't be sure if I heard or just felt safe, but I heard that word inside my head. I looked back at the cat as I thought it made a gurgling sound. Still don't know, but when I turned my back, my savior was gone. I was replaying everything in my mind when I heard a crack at my 5 o'clock. As I turned toward the sound, a long, thin stick came flying out of the trees, landing a few feet behind me. I never saw or heard him after the first moment, but I was positive he threw me a crutch to help me get on my feet and made it out of there. Over the years, I held the experience to myself alone, knowing I'd be locked up if I told anyone. Following your channel, I've come to know that you are very trustworthy and never judge. There are bad apples in every species, Steve, but people need to understand that they have compassion for us. Unless attacked, definitely not just intimidated to leave an area. They should not be hunted, shot at, or killed. If they allow us to understand them and respect them, there's no reason why we can't coexist together. Thank you, Steve, for relating these events from people in a serious, non-judgmental manner. Please keep doing it for us and for them. If you haven't already, use my name. I no longer feel the ridicule of closed-minded individuals. Anthony Cross. Anthony, no problem, man. Thanks for that share. I don't know how long you've been listening to everybody's share here, but man, we've had a small handful of people have fired up their experiences and sent it over, which included one of these beings reportedly grabbed the cat and broke it and basically snapped its spine in front of the guy who's about to jump on. There's been a few different experiences of these beings saving humans from getting jumped by cats. It's pretty amazing. There might be a lot of people out there that are still under that weird trance of thinking that cats only eat the sick and the old species. Well, they don't. Cats are opportunists, big time. Probably out of everything here in British Columbia, the two animals that I do not trust for 1 second is big cats and black bears. Black bears because they're so stupid, they don't know what they're going to do next. And big cats, unfortunately, are just opportunists. They have killed numerous people in this province, and they've grabbed many children. Yeah. But that's one hell of a frickin' experience, man. Shit. Unbelievable. And what a shitty thing. What a shitty thing to experience, and then nobody's there with you, and now what are you going to do? What are you going to do with that story, right? Just like you said, what are you going to do with that story now? It's funny, me and Sarah were talking about that the other night because we were watching that Stephen Greer show. What's it called? Unacknowledged? And I was telling her about some of the... Oh, I'll tell you this. I'll show you this. So, I've seen strange objects in the sky, I don't know, 3 or 4 times in my lifetime. And every time, like I would tell people, I go, well, it's like me and my buddy sitting on a mountain a couple falls ago in the extreme northern remote British Columbia. And we looked up, and here's this pewter-colored round ball just suspended in the blue sky. And we're on top of this mountain in the middle of frickin' nowhere. We're looking at this thing, and then we're looking for mountain sheep at the same time. We're, yep, it's still there. We go back doing our thing. We look at each other. It's like, oh, well, I guess we saw a UFO. There you go. Now what? What are you gonna do with that story? That's not as drastic as yours. It's like Sarah and I were also talking about their forest on their parents' dairy farm in New Brunswick, very rural. There's moose all over the place. And spruce forest way out back, and nothing straight out back. And they family were having visits nighttime in the winter, and she said the forest way out back was lit up like it was a football stadium. And they don't know where the light was coming from, and there's nothing back there. And they all looked at it, and they went back inside, and the light went away. That was it, right? Even with that, what are you going to tell people now, right? But having that experience, or even for myself, seeing these things a few times each, I don't bring it up in public. I don't even share this shit on my social media pages. What for? It's not going to do anything. I've told people, I don't know how many times I've been in groups of people and somebody's brought it up. Said, yeah, Steve's seen them. And I'm like, yeah, tell them the story. I'm like, I don't really want to, because you can tell. You can tell by the look of somebody's face, their demeanor, whether or not they are truly interested in hearing it or not. Most times they're not, so I don't even feel like sharing it. I'm like, what for? It's going to be the biggest waste of time. Sharing your experience with somebody who's going to look at you like a window licker, and they're going to turn around and walk away and have no input, no curiosity, and there's just nothing there. I know I'm kind of a little bit babbling. We just went for a coffee and a sugar treat at the local donut shop before I came in here, so I'm on the babbling side of things right now. I'm glad you shared that. This is the right place to do it, man. For sure. Thank God you got out of there. It sucked to be dealing with a cat. They say that you are less likely to survive a cat attack than you are a full-on grizzly bear attack. That is because the majority of grizzly attacks is unexpected. You bumped into them or cubs and saw whatever. But 100% of cat attacks on humans is because the cat sees us as a meal. So you see any flavor of cat coming towards you, you get as big as you can and you start fighting right away. You get sticks, you get rocks, and you go at that cat. Get aggressive, because it's looking to see if you're weak and how much of a hassle it'll be to take your ass down and kill you dead. And that's a fact. How is this freaking phone keeps closing on me? All right, here we go. What's this title? It's titled Red now. All right, this is titled, I Thought I Was the Only One. Hey Steve, I've gone back and forth about writing this because I haven't had any clear-cut proof, just some odd experiences. First, let me say I watched a video a little while ago where someone said they would have almost a dream-like state and see future events. I've had that same experience since I was a child. It happens randomly for me, but there is a clear difference between a random dream that just feels different. I will know the moment I wake up that what I just saw in my dream I will see later in life. I won't know when or why, but it'll happen. I honestly thought I was the only one to experience that. You can call me Jay. Sorry, I don't want to give up my full name. I've just too much to lose if people thought I was crazy. LOL. You'll get past it. You'll accept that you're crazy just like the rest of us eventually. I'm kidding. So at 36, I've been in the southern, here we go again, Adirondack mountains with my dad and uncle since I was 4 or 5 years old. I've been in the fire service for 13 years. I've been driving tractor trailers for the last 8 years. I tell you this to let you know that there is nothing that scares me. I solo camp in the deep woods. I've been out back roads in the dead of night driving across the country, and I willingly run into burning buildings. With that said, where my family hunts, there is a large mountain across the river that we use as a landmark because it has a large bare rock face at the top. Whenever I would look at it and wonder what was up there or over the other side, I would get this sort of an uneasy feeling. So one day during deer season, about 3 years ago, I set out to find out what was over the top. As I neared the bottom of the granite rock face, I started to get that uneasy feeling again. But I pushed on. Standing to the side of the rock face, I continued up the mountain. As near the top, in my head, I heard clear as a bell, "Stop, turn back." Shaking it off, thinking that's a weird inner monologue to have, I kept going. When I got to the top, for the first time in my life, I was afraid in the woods. I don't mean uneasy feeling like you're not sure where you are. I mean straight fear. Before I knew what was going, I had my rifle over my shoulder, heading back down the steep mountain. I'd drawn my .357 mag and was almost running down the hillside back the way I'd come from. The following year I went back to that area. I stayed on my side of the river. There was a beech tree that was snapped off and pointing right towards that mountain. Now I know your views on tree breaks, but Steve, this tree was broken about 15 feet off the ground. At the point of the break, it was roughly 3 to 4 inches across. Again, I've been in the woods my whole life. This wasn't the wind or snow load. I don't know what could have done that. In 2020, I had to tell my youngest daughter she couldn't have a birthday party due to COVID. Her 6-year-old response, "Can we go camping?" So mid-April we hiked in, set up camp, and got ready for a long, cool night in upstate New York mountains, LOL. Somewhere in the night I woke to an owl hooting above the tent. Then another one to the south, then one to the east, then another one. In total there were 5 owls hooting, one right after the other, faster than if they were just hopping from tree to tree. Now, the barred owl mating season is December to March. This is the middle of April. Could it have been a group of owls that were still looking to breed? Possible. The weird thing was I got that same uneasy feeling. I looked at my sleeping daughter and then was flooded with anger. No doubt. I unholstered my .357 and said in my head, I don't want any trouble. I'm here enjoying nature with my child, but if you try to hurt her, I will kill every last one of you. The hooting stopped, and I never heard another owl that night. Coincidence? Overactive imagination? Or was there something there that could understand me? I don't know. Sorry this is so long, but it actually helped to type this out. I told my wife about these experiences and she laughed at me and told me to lay off the beer before I go to bed. This woman has literally saved my life and now thinks I'm crazy. Thank you for your time. I'm thinking this year may be the time to finally see what's on the other side of that mountain. If I find anything unusual, I'll let you know. Thank you and stay safe. Sincerely, Jay. P.S. A couple years ago, you shared an encounter from someone in Vermont who got scared out of the woods and left behind a gun that his grandfather had given him. Steve, I'll give my email address to you if you could save it. That would be great. If that person is listening and could reach out, maybe you could put us in contact with each other. My grandfather was giving me 2 guns, and I couldn't imagine losing either one. And I'll go with you to get that gun back so you can have it and don't have to go alone. Well, that's a very generous, kind offer, man, and I think I do remember that email. And obviously I'll never remember the name of the person or the email, God. But I do know that there is a lot of people commented in the comment section below and emailed in. I think somebody got a hold of them to go there to look for the gun with them. I think there was a whole pile of people. But I just shared that on here. So if the person who did write that story in is listening right now and you haven't gone to look for that gun, well, you got somebody else who will. Maybe even leave a comment in the section below. Leave a comment in the comment section below the video, or you can email me again and I'll put you in contact with this fellow and you go look for that gun maybe. But anyway, get back to your intuition and sixth sense, right? If everything was okay when you were in the tent with your daughter, you wouldn't have felt like that, right? And when you get that uneasy feeling about going over the top of that mountain, I don't know, man, don't go against your gut instinct, right? I mean, there are places that I know I just will not go, and my gut makes me feel very uncomfortable when I want to entertain the thought of going to those places, so I just don't go, because that would be going against my gut. And all through life with any decision at all, if I go against my gut, I lose. I learned that a long time ago. If I go against my intuition, go against your gut instincts, you lose every single time. Don't forget that, man, right? If you want to, I don't know, test the waters. That day that you decide to go hike up and take a look on the other side of that mountain, get in tune with your gut that morning and make sure it's not indigestion. And you get a clear message with your intuition about whether or not that's the right thing to do, right? I'm suggesting as a possibility. Anyway. Oh man, I should probably go in. That was a good fair amount of sharing, I think. There's so many. There's so many. I will read every single one of them. Hold my beer and watch this. I'll get it done, no matter how much everybody says they don't think I will get it done. Oh man, what if there's this fairly... Alright, let's try this one. This is a short one. Got room for one more short one, then I'm getting out of here. This is titled Strange Game Cam Photo. Hi Steve, I hope you're well, sir. Thank you very much, I am, and I hope you are too. I love the channel and your post on the subject of Sasquatch/Bigfoot. It's great to hear people having the confidence to come forward and share their experiences. Just thought I'd share a photo. A Facebook friend in the USA who shared it on his page a few years ago. He lives in a mobile home in Woodland and had noticed a few items on his site move while he was away. So he set up a game cam. The attached photo is what appeared on the camera the next time he was away. The object to the right is quite bizarre. Sorry I don't have a load more details. It was a few years ago when I got the photo from him. I dare say I could contact him for more details if you needed them. Best of luck with your channel. Chris Mitchell, South Shields, England. All right, man. Hope you're doing well over there. Now you got, especially now you got all that COVID shit, bullshit lifted. But I'll share this with the people. From here so far, it looks like something I don't need to see in my backyard. Mess with my shit. There you go, another trail camera photo. Crazy. I don't know who, maybe somebody's familiar with this photo, maybe somebody isn't, but if you are, throw down some information about it in the comment section below, I guess. Anyway, that'll do it for now. It's funny, side note, if you guys are familiar with my hunting stories that I've previously shared, and you remember the one about the crackhead from Georgia? Do you guys remember that? He smuggled crystal meth in his bullets instead of gunpowder and wigged out in camp. We had to get rid of him, blah, blah, blah. I almost was going to beat the living tar out of him. I'm going through this chest, and in this chest I have letters from past hunters from years ago. I've got old stories that I wrote from years ago in this chest, and photographs, like stacks of them. And the funniest thing, he had left this envelope on the floor of the cabin. It's got his full name and mailing address and the naked picture of his girlfriend in this thing that he was fooling around on his wife with. He's such a scumbag. It's like, there wasn't any internet back then, really. There is now, but I'm not quite that ruthless. Anyways, it's kind of funny. Slight mention to all you people that are familiar with that story. Actually, I'm going to Google that up, see where that is, that address. Anyway, that's all for now. I'll be back, and we're looking forward to some more replies from Edgar's going to have a bunch of hopefully very interesting information he's going to throw our way as soon as he gets to it. No pressure on Edgar. I always tell him he's got to concentrate more on his fight and spending time with his family before us, right? But he knows we're all sitting here patiently waiting. We can't wait for more. And that goes as well. We can't wait for more from many other people out there who regularly contribute here. I'm out of here. I babbled out. I'm done. Back later.